So great to see you.
Great to see you.
I appreciate. I know your days are busy. I know you're working, 40-hour days, and it seems like everybody in the administration is.
We can't keep up with the president. We're all trying to keep up with Donald Trump, which is a wonderful thing.
Okay, I got to start in the United Socialist Utopia of California.
Where do we start?
Okay, so he wanted to change the rules. They had a commission that would appoint and gerrymander. Tell us about this lawsuit.
It wasn't even illicit. They are flat out publicizing what they're trying to do and why they're trying to do it. They're trying to create seats based on race, and they can't do it. And we're going to hold them accountable just like any other state. I mean, they very publicly said, Sean, what they're trying to do, and it's illegal gerrymandering. They cannot do it.
All right, tonight, not far from the White House, more big news from the executive branch, where the Department of Justice is busier than ever. In fact, the DOJ, they just sued good old California Governor Gavin Newsom and his state over gerrymandering and his plan, calling it an illicit power grab. Meanwhile, the DOJ is making very serious progress with their investigation into Biden's weaponization of justice. Apparently, even former Speaker McCarthy's phone records were targeted by Jack Smith, and it's growing by the day. Also developing tonight, a new criminal referral against, Mr. Fang Fang himself, Eric Swalwell. Imagine that. Over what? Another possible mortgage fraud issue. And Attorney General Pam Bondi is exploring hate crime charges against those violent anti-free speech writers at UC Berkeley. Finally, a chilling incident in the state of New Jersey. A person of interest is now wanted for questioning after this individual attempted to confront U.S. Attorney Alina Habba at her office with a baseball bat before destroying property and fleeing the scene. All right, here with more, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi.
So Congress just dropped a bomb on Pam Bondi, and honestly, the Attorney General looks absolutely stunned by what's been revealed. Picture this. For months, Bondi has been running the Justice Department, telling everyone that everything is fine, that DOJ is pursuing justice impartially, that there's no political interference, that Trump's appointees are just doing their jobs and following the law, standard stuff, what every Attorney General says. But then Congress starts releasing documents, internal emails, memos, case summaries, communications between senior DOJ officials, and suddenly the whole narrative falls apart. Come on. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest, you can't really trust headlines anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
So yeah, we sued them today. We're going to continue suing California until they start complying with the laws of our country. Whether it's, what else, sanctuary cities, the Second Amendment. We're winning in the Supreme Court.
National Guard.
Our ICE, that's exactly right, that the National Guard and ICE can be in California to actually protect the citizens of California. Let's see, what else? Illegal emissions from trucks. And look what Sean Duffy did today. Look what he found with all the truckers who were given illegal licenses, truck driving licenses in California. It's constant with that state.
We saw what happened in Florida.
Right.
I mean, guy couldn't speak English, couldn't read road signs, had a license in Washington State and in California. Sanctuary state status protection allowed him to get that. Should they be held legally accountable for that?
They should. They all should, and California can't do it, and that's why Secretary Duffy today found it, and California pulled 17,000 commercial licenses. I can't even imagine that number of licenses that they pulled, commercial truck driving licenses, because they're letting these people.
Because these aren't just random documents, these are smoking guns, evidence that senior DOJ figures slowed or narrowed investigations that could embarrass Trump or his inner circle, proof that politically sensitive cases were handled differently than normal cases, documentation showing that officials who pushed for aggressive prosecution of Trump's opponents got promoted while officials who wanted to investigate Trump allies got sidelined, all of it laid out in black and white in documents that Congress obtained through oversight and subpoenas. And Bondi is scrambling because she either knew about all of this and lied to Congress about it, or she didn't know and she's not actually in control of her own department. Either way, she looks terrible. Either she's complicit in politicizing the Justice Department, or she's incompetent and can't manage the people under her. Those are the only two options. and neither is good for an attorney general. Can you believe this? The New York Times just ran a piece about chaos at the Justice Department, and it's brutal. Based on congressional records and internal DOJ emails, the story details how Trump's political priorities have infected the department's decision-making, how cases that should be pursued aggressively get slow-walked when they involve Trump allies, how prosecutors who want to follow evidence that leads to politically connected people get overruled by political appointees, how the whole system is rigged to protect Trump and his circle while weaponizing prosecutions against his enemies. Are you kidding me? And it's not just the Times. Congress has been digging into this for months, multiple committees conducting oversight, subpoenaing documents, interviewing whistleblowers, and what they're finding is a Justice Department that's completely corrupted by politics, where decisions about who to investigate and who to prosecute are made based on loyalty to Trump, not based on evidence or law, where the phrase equal justice under law has become a joke because some people are protected no matter what they do and others are targeted no matter how innocent they are. One of the most explosive revelations comes from Jack Smith's final report. You know, the special counsel who was investigating Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election? Smith's report is now public and is devastating. It documents what Smith calls a criminal effort by Trump to stay in power after losing. It lays out evidence of obstruction, pressure campaigns on state officials, fake elector schemes, incitement of violence on January 6th, all supported by witness testimony and contemporaneous documents. Come on. But here's what's interesting. The report also shows internal debates at DOJ about whether and how to prosecute Trump, senior officials wrestling with the political implications, discussions about timing and optics, concerns about being accused of interfering in elections, and Hill investigators are now going through all of that material, looking for evidence that political considerations trump legal ones, that DOJ made decisions based on protecting Trump rather than pursuing justice, and what they're finding is not pretty. Then there's the Epstein files situation. Congress voted overwhelmingly to force release of all government documents related to Jeffrey Epstein, but Bondi's DOJ has been dragging its feet, making excuses about privacy and ongoing investigations, releasing tiny amounts of heavily redacted material, and now congressional investigators have obtained records suggesting that DOJ briefings and written answers to lawmakers understated how much the department already knew and how much it could release without legal barriers. In other words, Bondi's people have been lying to Congress about what they can and can't disclose. Can you believe this? PBS and other outlets are reporting that this has put Bondi on a collision course with Congress because lawmakers are furious. They passed legislation mandating transparency. They've been asking for updates and getting stonewalled. And now they have documents showing DOJ knew it could release more than it was claiming, that the legal barriers officials kept citing were exaggerated or made up, that this was always about protecting powerful people named in the Epstein files, not about following the law. Are you kidding me? And then there's the broader accountability problem. Legal experts and think tanks like the Brennan Center have been documenting what they call a broken accountability system at DOJ. Congressional records show weak internal discipline for prosecutors and senior officials who mishandle politically sensitive cases, people who violated rules or abused their authority, facing no consequences if they're on the right political team, whistleblowers who report problems getting retaliated against while the people they reported get promoted. It's a complete breakdown of institutional integrity. Come on. So now, Bondi is facing multiple fronts of attack. Congress is releasing documents that make her look complicit in politicizing justice. The Jack Smith report is creating new pressure to explain why DOJ didn't act more aggressively on Trump's crimes. The Epstein files fight is exposing lies about what can and can't be released. And the broken accountability system is undermining any claim that DOJ operates with integrity. Bondi is surrounded, and she has no good moves. Every defense she offers gets contradicted by documents Congress releases. Every claim about following the law gets exposed as selective enforcement that protects Trump's allies and targets his enemies. She's losing control of the narrative. And in Washington, once you lose the narrative, you lose everything. Okay, so let's dig into what these explosive files actually reveal and why they're so damaging to Bondi and the Trump administration's Justice Department. First, the internal communications that Congress obtained. These are emails and memos between senior DOJ officials discussing how to handle politically sensitive cases, and what they show is a department that's constantly calibrating decisions based on political impact rather than legal merit. Come on. For example, there are emails about investigations into Trump allies where officials discuss whether pursuing charges would create political blowback for the administration. There are discussions about timing, about whether to move forward before or after certain political events. There are suggestions to narrow the scope of investigations to avoid implicating certain individuals. All of this is documented in writing, and it shows that political considerations are driving prosecutorial decisions in ways that completely violate DOJ norms and principles. Traditionally, the Justice Department is supposed to be independent. Prosecutors are supposed to follow evidence wherever it leads without regard to political consequences. The whole system depends on people believing that justice is blind, that everyone is treated equally under the law. But these documents show the opposite. They show a department where political loyalty determines how you're treated, where being a Trump ally means you get special protection, and being a Trump critic means you get special scrutiny. That's not justice, that's corruption. Can you believe this? And it's not just about who gets investigated, it's also about who gets promoted and rewarded inside the department. The documents show that officials who pushed for aggressive prosecution of Trump's political opponents got career advancement. People who wanted to investigate Trump allies got sidelined or forced out. Whistleblowers who reported problems faced retaliation. The incentive structure is completely backwards. You get ahead by being political, not by being ethical or following the law. Are you kidding me? Now let's talk about the Jack Smith report, because this is a detailed, well-documented account of Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Smith spent years investigating. He interviewed witnesses. He obtained documents. He presented evidence to grand juries, and his conclusion is unambiguous. Trump engaged in a criminal effort to stay in power after losing the election. That's the special counsel's finding, not speculation, not partisan accusation, a careful legal analysis supported by evidence. Come on. The report details the fake elector scheme, where Trump's team organized fraudulent electoral certificates in multiple states. It documents the pressure campaign on state officials like Georgia's Brad Raffensperger to find votes and change results. It shows Trump's attempt to corrupt the Justice Department by installing a loyalist who would declare the election fraudulent. It describes the pressure on Mike Pence to reject electoral votes. And it shows how all of this culminated in January 6th when Trump directed an angry mob at the Capitol as a last desperate attempt to stop Biden's certification. But here's what's also important in the report. Smith documents internal discussions at DOJ about how to handle the Trump investigation. There were concerns about timing, about being accused of interfering in elections if they moved too quickly, debates about whether a sitting or former president could be prosecuted, discussions about the political ramifications of charging Trump. And while some of those considerations are legitimate, the question is whether they prevented DOJ from acting when they should have acted, whether political caution became an excuse for inaction. Can you believe this? Congressional investigators are now going through all of that, looking for evidence that DOJ deliberately slow-walked the Trump investigation for political reasons, that officials made decisions based on protecting Trump rather than pursuing justice, and what their findings suggest that's exactly what happened, that DOJ had evidence of Trump's crimes much earlier than they acted on it, that delays weren't about careful investigation, but about political calculation, that the department prioritized avoiding controversy over holding a former president accountable for serious crimes. Are you kidding me? Then there's the Epstein files mess. Congress voted 427-1 to mandate release of all government documents related to Jeffrey Epstein, but months later, very little has actually been released. DOJ keeps making excuses. They claim court orders bar release. They cite privacy concerns. They talk about protecting ongoing investigations, all of which sounds reasonable until you look at the documents Congress obtained. Come on. Those documents show that DOJ's briefings to Congress understated how much they could release. Officials testified that court orders prevented disclosure of thousands of documents, when in reality, the orders only covered a small subset of grand jury materials. They claimed ongoing investigations prevented release when those investigations were largely concluded or could proceed without the specific documents being withheld. They cited privacy protections when survivors of Epstein's abuse were demanding transparency. Every excuse was either false or exaggerated. And congressional investigators found emails and memos showing DOJ officials knew they were being misleading. There are discussions about how to avoid releasing certain documents without explicitly saying they're protecting powerful people. Suggestions about which legal justifications would be hardest for Congress to challenge. Coordination with the White House about how to manage the political fallout from withholding files. It's a deliberate strategy to prevent transparency while maintaining plausible deniability. Can you believe this? This is especially damaging for Bondi because she's testified to Congress about the Epstein files. She's claimed her hands are tied by legal constraints. She's insisted DOJ is following the law and can't just release everything. But now documents show her department was lying about those constraints, that officials under her leadership deliberately misled Congress. Either Bondi knew and approved the deception, or she didn't know and isn't in control of her own department. Either way, her credibility is destroyed. Are you kidding me? Now let's talk about the broken accountability system, because this is about more than just individual cases. This is about institutional rot. The Brennan Center and other watchdog organizations have been documenting for years how DOJ's internal discipline system has failed. Prosecutors and officials who violate rules or abuse their authority rarely face meaningful consequences. The Office of Professional Responsibility, which is supposed to investigate misconduct, is underfunded and lacks teeth. Inspector General reports documenting problems get ignored. Whistleblowers get retaliated against instead of rewarded. Come on. And congressional records now show this in detail. There are cases where prosecutors clearly violated rules, maybe leaked information to the press or coordinated with political operatives or misled courts, and nothing happened to them. Sometimes there were internal reviews that found wrongdoing but recommended no discipline. Sometimes there weren't even reviews because nobody wanted to look. And in many cases, the officials involved in misconduct were politically connected, working on cases important to Trump or his administration, which made them untouchable. Meanwhile, officials who tried to hold people accountable or who reported problems face career consequences. There are emails showing whistleblowers being transferred to less desirable positions after raising concerns, performance reviews that suddenly turned negative after someone questioned a politically sensitive decision, promotions that got blocked because someone wasn't seen as a team player. The message is clear: go along with the politicization and you'll be rewarded, push back and you'll be punished. Can you believe this? This is how institutions die. When the incentive structure rewards corruption and punishes integrity, good people leave and bad people thrive. And that's exactly what's happening at DOJ under Bondi and Trump. Career prosecutors with decades of experience are retiring early or transferring to other agencies. They don't want to be part of a politicized department where their work is judged by loyalty rather than merit. And they're being replaced by political appointees whose main qualification is allegiance to Trump. Are you kidding me? So when you put all of this together, what you have is a Justice Department that's been systematically corrupted, where investigations of Trump allies get slow-walked or killed, where investigations of Trump critics get accelerated and publicized, where transparency mandates get ignored when disclosure would be embarrassing, where internal accountability has broken down completely, and where the Attorney General either can't or won't fix any of it. Come on. And Bondi's response to all of this has been inadequate. She's given vague statements about following the law and respecting institutional norms. She's promised to look into concerns raised by Congress. She's insisted that DOJ is operating with integrity. But the documents Congress is releasing prove otherwise. They show a department riddled with political interference and selective enforcement. And Bondi is either complicit or incompetent. Those are the only options. She's either actively participating in the corruption or she's too weak to stop it. Either way, she's failing as Attorney General. All right, let's break down what happens next and what this means for Bondi, for DOJ, and for accountability. Point 1. Congress is not done releasing documents. What we've seen so far is probably just the beginning. Multiple committees are conducting oversight. They have more subpoenas out. More whistleblowers are coming forward, and they're promising more document releases in the coming weeks and months. So this drip, drip, drip of damaging revelations is going to continue. Come on. And each new release makes Bondi's position weaker. Each document that contradicts her testimony or shows DOJ misleading Congress makes it harder for her to maintain credibility. She's going to be called back to testify. She's going to be asked to explain specific emails and memos. She's going to be confronted with evidence of wrongdoing and asked what she's doing about it. And she's not going to have good answers because the documents speak for themselves. Can you believe this? Point 2. The Jack Smith report is going to haunt Trump and his administration because it's a detailed roadmap of criminal conduct. Even though Trump isn't being prosecuted right now because of DOJ's policy against indicting sitting presidents, the evidence doesn't go away. It's on the record. And when Trump leaves office, whether that's in 2029 or earlier, if something happens, prosecutors could pick up where Smith left off. Are you kidding me? And the report also creates political problems because it undermines Trump's claims that he did nothing wrong, that the election investigations were witch hunts, that he was just fighting fraud. Smith documents that Trump knew he lost, that his own advisors told him there was no significant fraud, that he did it anyway because he wanted to stay in power. That narrative is now part of the official record. Trump can call it fake or political, but he can't erase it. Come on. Point 3. The Epstein files fight is reaching a breaking point. Congress has mandated release. Courts have clarified there are no legal barriers to disclosing most documents, but DOJ is still dragging its feet, and now documents show they've been lying about why. That's not sustainable. Something has to give. Either Bondi complies and releases the files, or Congress holds her in contempt and possibly moves to impeach. Can you believe this? And if the files do get released, the fallout is going to be enormous. Names of powerful people, evidence of trafficking, documentation of who knew what and when. It's going to dominate news cycles. It's going to reshape reputations. It's going to create legal and political consequences for people who thought they were protected. And Bondi is going to be blamed for the delay for fighting transparency when she should have been leading it. Are you kidding me? Point 4. The broken accountability system is fixable, but only if there's political will. Congress could pass legislation strengthening DOJ's internal discipline mechanisms. They could increase funding for oversight. They could create stronger whistleblower protections. They could require transparency in disciplinary decisions. But all of that requires both parties to care more about institutional integrity than partisan advantage. And right now, Republicans control Congress, and they're not interested in reforms that would constrain Trump's DOJ. Come on. So the accountability problems are likely to get worse before they get better. More officials will violate norms knowing there are no consequences. More whistleblowers will be silenced. More cases will be politicized, and public trust in DOJ will continue eroding. That's the trajectory we're on. And it's dangerous because a justice system that people don't trust can't function. When prosecutors bring cases, defendants will claim political motivation. When juries deliberate, they'll question whether the government is being honest. The whole system breaks down. Can you believe this? Point 5. There's a broader question about whether Bondi can survive this. Attorneys general have been forced out for less. When your credibility is shot, when Congress is releasing documents that make you look corrupt or incompetent, when you've lost the confidence of career prosecutors in your own department, it becomes very hard to continue. Are you kidding me? Trump might decide Bondi is more trouble than she's worth, that she's become a distraction and a liability, that he needs someone else to manage DOJ and take the heat. Or Bondi might resign, claiming she wants to spend time with family or pursue other opportunities, but really just getting out before things get worse. Either way, her tenure as Attorney General is probably going to be short and defined by these scandals. Come on. Point 6. Let's talk about what this means for the rule of law, because that's ultimately what's at stake. The whole American system depends on the idea that laws apply equally to everyone, that you can't commit crimes and escape consequences just because you're powerful or politically connected, that justice is blind. But what these documents show is that under Bondi and Trump, justice isn't blind at all. It's highly selective. Political loyalty determines whether you get investigated or protected. Can you believe this? And once people believe the system is rigged, it's very hard to restore faith. Even when things change, even when new leadership tries to do better, the cynicism remains. People assume corruption. They don't trust official statements. They think investigations are political hit jobs rather than legitimate law enforcement. That cynicism corrodes democracy. It makes it harder to govern. It creates space for demagogues and extremists who exploit public distrust. Are you kidding me? So the damage Bondi and Trump are doing to DOJ's reputation isn't just about their tenure. It's going to last for years, maybe decades. Future attorneys general are going to have to work incredibly hard to rebuild trust. They're going to have to demonstrate through actions, not just words, that the department operates with integrity. And even then, a lot of people won't believe them, because once trust is broken, it's nearly impossible to fully restore. Come on. Point 7. Congress's role in all of this is crucial, because oversight is one of the few checks left on executive power when the president's party controls the Justice Department. Congressional committees can subpoena documents. They can hold hearings. They can force officials to testify under oath. They can make misconduct public. All of that matters. Can you believe this? But congressional oversight only works if members are willing to follow evidence, even when it's politically inconvenient. And right now, with Republicans controlling Congress, there's a limit to how far they'll push. They'll investigate and release documents that embarrass Bondi and DOJ because some of them genuinely care about accountability, but they probably won't take the ultimate step of moving to impeach or cut funding, because that would mean breaking with Trump. And most Republicans aren't willing to do that. Are you kidding me? So we're stuck in this weird middle ground. Enough oversight to expose problems, but not enough to actually fix them. Enough document releases to damage Bondi's credibility, but not enough pressure to force real change. It's accountability theater. It looks like Congress is doing something, but substantive reform doesn't happen, and the corruption continues. Come on. So where does this leave us? Congress has released explosive files showing political interference at DOJ, lies about the Epstein files, and a broken accountability system. Pam Bondi is stunned and scrambling to respond. Trump's Justice Department is exposed as corrupt and selective in its enforcement, and the rule of law is suffering. These documents don't just embarrass Bondi politically. They create a paper trail that historians and future prosecutors will use to judge whether this era's DOJ upheld or undermined justice. And right now, the answer looks pretty clear. They undermined it. Systematically, deliberately, with full knowledge of what they were doing. The files prove it, and now everyone can see it. This is wild.